93 or 4%, and then got over the line with 7% left to sort.
Yeah.
But the main dynamic I saw there, which I thought was very interesting, was that the central committee who was doing this, the central group, would not accept responsibility for sorting other people's problems.
Yeah.
I don't know if you come across anything like that.
I came across something like that where, I think what you're looking at there is almost forced integration. And I suppose integration is the key thing. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it that I saw is where you create the cross-functional teams to look at systems and processes. Systems can be a big issue to integrate systems when two companies become one. You create your cross-functional teams and you get a facilitator, and force may be slightly too strong a word, but you actually put them into a situation whereby they have to work together, they have to work to specific terms of reference, and you have a double whammy there in the sense that you're dealing with the content of the systems and you've got a facilitator dealing with the dynamics of building teamwork.
Yeah, because it's not
It won't happen on its own.
But it's not a natural marriage. It's not a marriage of love.
No.
It's
an arranged. It's an arranged marriage.
It's an arranged, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, people are watching out for all the time, telling who's getting what positions, and who's getting who's the dominant thing. I always remember we merged two football teams at home in a parish one stage, and if anybody out there thinks that merging companies is difficult, you start merging two football teams in the one parish, and of course, what happened was, unfortunately, there are 15 people on the football team, right? So there's also going to be 8 and 7. Yeah. And every week that they went out, everybody was counting out who's got the 8 and who's got the 7. Yeah. And of course, having spent, I suppose, 20 years pulling these people together, in about 2 years, we ended up with two teams in the parish, then we had one, which was great. We ended up with 3 because the hardliners on both sides formed their own teams anyway, because things fell asunder. It's unbelievable. But that was because of that.
I've been there. I've played in those teams. And you look at it, the other thing is, if you're part of the 7 going out with the other 8 guys, one of your guys might present you, I wouldn't pass the ball to one of those.
But I saw that in companies. Believe it or not, you can actually transfer that down, if you're not careful, into companies where people will be saying there's the us and them thing that's there.
Right.
It was on for years if it was not done right.
Well, the two sides of the Finnegan Parliamentary Party, would that be a merger?
No, look. Right, we leave that one for the minute, right?
Well, you said it's not even a marriage, but there's another name for it besides the marriage that I've heard.
Yeah, all right. It's not a current affairs program.
Go back to all the fundamentals we've been talking about previously in relation to change. If you're going through, not to harp on it, but in going through any sort of process, merger or acquisition, you're back into your whole change dynamic.
Yeah.
And that we start again at the fundamentals. The whole thing starts at the top.
Yes.
In two organisations, there's going to be 2 chiefs and 2 senior management teams.
But there can't be, you see, Frank. When
you
watch, as they come closer together and they see the white, there's 2 into 1 more go.
No, that's my point.
Yeah.
The greatest resistors of change are those the most invested, the senior management.
Yeah.
So you have to start there and sort that out first. So, because whoever's going to be the chief, that's where the fundamentals start if it's a merger and acquisition.
Yeah.
Going back to Mick's point, 2 chiefs. You can't. I've seen a scenario whereby they wouldn't bite the bullet, and whilst it was being sold as a merger, one of the chiefs became the deputy chief, which that sends a signal immediately to all the staff, because in any organisation they then take their perception from where their chief has ended up, and then it all follows on from that. But unless you get that bit sorted out first at the very beginning, all the rest of the stuff.
But in your experience, given that that's the bit, the dynamic that in a way sets the tone, what have you seen that works in terms of getting that top bit right? Is it like my football team with the 8 and 5 split it down the middle, or is it the best man gets the job in terms of the top team?
I've seen in a very big insurance one here, the best man gets the job.
Yes.
Whereby in that scenario, what they essentially did was they had the
who decides who's the best man?
The board.
The board.
You start at the board, and the board picks the chief.
Right.
So if these decisions are going to be made at senior management level and board level, the board ultimately ends up, if it's a new board, or a bigger board, or a smaller board, or a redesigned board, they ultimately make the decision. You must put a chief in place. You must have a champion of the process, and after that, it all cascades down. Now, in this scenario, what they did was, as they went down, and there was consultants involved, you had too many senior managers. So they redesigned, if you like, that portion, as the boys keep talking about in the World Cup, on the top third of the pitch. They redesigned all the strikers, and there was open competition. You were told there was 100 senior managers in the new organisation. There'll be 50, there'll be 75. 25 will be going. Here's the criteria. Anybody interested, apply. I'd be not interested. Here's the package. Good luck.
I saw one, Frank, where they got the top team, and it was a deliberate enough decision. If we'll say there were 8 people on the top team, they did a 4 and a 4, but knowing that wasn't going to last, they were going to say 4 and 4. They reckon we'll do this for 2 years, and just to get the thing moving and get a bit of cooperation going. And after 2 years, they knew in 2 years they were going to start then do a best man gets the best job. But they did it slightly artificially for the first couple of years, to hold the thing in place.
Well, that's a very key feature, because if you look at the statistics and the research, as Mick says, and you look back on these things, the people who've done an analysis, the number of people who leave at senior management level and down the organisation is huge.
Yes.
That's why when you're designing any voluntary redundancy or any redundancy programs, generally the employer reserves the right to say yes or no, because even if it is only for 12 months or 2 years, the employer needs to retain essential skills. Because the worst thing that can happen to you is that you've identified somebody in the marketplace, you bought them over either by acquisition or because it's strategic, or whatever, and the minute you announce that you're taking over company Y, everybody gets up and walks out.
Yeah.
Because more and more what you're buying is the human capital.
Yeah.
That's gone.
Yeah.
If you knew buying it that all the senior management and all the key players would walk out, you'd probably take a different view to what you're buying.
Yeah. And I suppose the key issue, going back to the chief executive and the huge role, I mean, you can't underestimate the role of a chief executive in a merger, particularly. And I think the issue is, being practical, they're going to come from one of the camps, generally. It's rarely just going to be a new person. The key issue is, on day one, they got to realise they're running a different company.
Yeah.
I'm not running my previous company. And actually, I'm going to, even right now, this is day one, there's people out there who are full of apprehension, suspicion, curiosity, possible mistrust. And what am I going to say to them? How am I going to manage it?
Well,
and all the arrangements you need to put in place, and where we have seen, I mean, Peter, we've been involved in cases where we have seen is you still have a situation sometimes 5 years later where a company feels we've been taken over.
Yeah. And
that man is still definitely in the other camp.
20 years later.
Yeah, but I remember when we were working with at one stage, and they brought all of the people together, and a lot of them, those 1,000 people or something together, to talk about how this thing was going to work, and they did this up at the very beginning of it. But the amount of preparation that went into that session, that communication session that day, because that was doing what you were talking about it there, Mick. It was creating not so much one or other of the companies involved. It was creating the new company. And therefore, the new company was launched to the people. So it was new to everybody.
Yeah.
It had a set of values, how it wanted to do things, sort of behaviours that were going to be
Excellent,
there. And all of that was announced pretty much on the day.